Champions Clash. NXT comes to Wednesday night. King of the Ring is crowned. And we comment on the steel chairs this week on Wrestling with the Business.
Man, gotta love that intro. Welcome to Wrestling with the Business. I am your host, Matt Lambert, and with me, as always, is the man who's all about that business, Jeremy Bodette.
Happy to be here.
So we got a lot to unpack in this episode. As of the time of recording this, it is Tuesday night. SmackDown just went off the air, which means tomorrow night is the premiere of NXT on the USA Network. We're going to talk about how this is going to affect the business surrounding competition and make our predictions of how well they're going to do. Then we're going to move on to what we saw on Raw last night, the finals of the King of the Ring tournament. We have a new king, and one of us picked the right winner. And then after that, we're going to talk about a commentary on the use, or should I say the overuse, of the steel chair in pro wrestling. But before all that, we're going to get into what happened this weekend.
All right, let's get into it. We're going to talk Clash of Champions. We're going to talk high spots and blown spots. So let's just start really quickly, Matt, with an overall rating. How would you rate the show, 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the greatest you've ever seen?
I'd have to say this show was pretty much right in the middle. It was an average show. There was some good stuff, some bad stuff, and then there was some stuff that was pretty slow and boring. But we'll talk about all that in a minute. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think overall I'd agree with that. I'd give it a 5 out of 10. I think, in my preview I said that I thought the show was going to be incredibly hot and cold. The show was incredibly hot and cold. Let's start with a hot spot. So I can't believe we're listing this as our first hot spot, first high spot. It was shorter than expected.
It really was.
What drove that?
I honestly can't say. I think, they had 12 matches scheduled for this show, 11 championships, 1 grudge match. It was originally supposed to be 13 matches, but they moved the King of the Ring finals to Raw. I think they honestly just looked at their card and realized we got to shorten this down. The good majority of the matches were a lot shorter than expected, some to their detriment. I think some matches would have benefited better from having more time.
Let's just transition really quickly into a blown spot, because this one really got stuck in my craw. There were 3 people on the card tonight who were hometown people: Charlotte Flair, Cedric Alexander, and AJ Styles. And 2 of those 3 were on the kickoff show. Makes no sense to me why you would put 2/3 of the hometown people on the kickoff show. What the heck?
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I think the Cruiserweight match and especially the United States Championship match were expected to be potential show stealers. And when they announced that those 2 matches were going to be on the kickoff show, that blew me away. Cruiserweight match was about an average Cruiserweight match, what you would expect. But I think the AJ Cedric Alexander match was one of those matches that would have benefited from having more time. It was really not as good as expected.
I think it was the weaker of the 2 matches on the kickoff
I agree.
show. The Harper return. Now, Harper's been in the rumor news a lot lately, asking for his release, not getting it granted. Then it's quiet for a few weeks. I think anyone would have predicted that he'd be coming back, but I'm not really sure when or how. How did you feel about his return? What was good about it?
I thought it was great. It was so good to see Harper back after so long. He was often thought to be the breakout talent of the whole Wyatt family endeavor. He had the most talent. He had the best look. He was an incredible athlete. So for him to not ever get that singles push that fans really wanted to see from him was really disappointing. And then to hear he's asking for his release and whatnot, everything you mentioned. So it was nice to see him back. It's interesting to see what'll happen though, since it looked like Eric Rowan, was the one who was going to be getting that singles push next.
So, what does this mean for Rowan and his singles career? I mean, is that over?
It's that's what we have to wait and see. It looks like potentially they could be, at least in the near future, it's probably going to be a tag match between Harper and Rowan and Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns to wrap up that whole mess of a storyline that's been going on.
I think it's another example of too many stars on the roster, not willing, WWE's unwilling to release them because they don't want the AEW to scoop them up.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, you see mid to high card level guys that are just getting paired up because they got to fill space.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It's really putting an anchor on the tag team division. Not an anchor, but it's really overshadowing the excellent work and potential that's in the tag team division right now.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the last two Raw champions, or last two sets of Raw champions, weren't a tag team a month and a half ago. It's really a lack of planning on WWE's part.
It feels that way, right? It feels like it's all really last minute. Like they're never thinking any more than 1 week ahead, if that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand it if McMahon tears up the script 3 hours before curtain. I mean, okay, I get it. You can only... It's like I tell people, regardless of whether you eat tomorrow or not, you have to breathe in the next 3 minutes. So an emergency is an emergency. It's entirely different. But in a situation like this, you've got planning, you've got storylines that are running out. It almost seems like they got a dartboard with a bunch of people's pictures hanging onto it, and they're just tossing darts every Wednesday afternoon, saying, what the heck are we going to do next week?
No, Robert Roode and Dolph Ziggler make perfect sense. What are you talking about?
It's too bad. That gimmick is too bad. How long was the Kofi Orton match? Did you get a time on it?
It was right around 20 minutes, a little over, I think. That was definitely the longest match of the card and the slowest.
Every minute
by far.
That thing dragged.
Yeah.
That thing dragged. Becky Sasha.
This started out a really good match, and this was a pretty highly anticipated match. I think it lost a lot of steam in the end once the ref got hit with the chair, and they moved to the outside. They fought through the crowd, went up to the concourse, came back down. By the time they got back down to the ring, the commentary told the people at home that the match had been thrown out. Lynch had been disqualified, but the people in the arena didn't know that. And it was still a few more minutes before the ring announcer finally said this match is over. And I think it really it brought the match down quite a bit. I think the crowd really wanted to see a finish to that match as well. And then on top of that, when the ring announcer says Becky Lynch is disqualified, and here's still your Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch, and they play her music, it was just an awkward ending to a otherwise good match before that.
You know what would have made it a million times better?
Food fight.
Food. I was thinking that in real time. I saw like a bottle of mustard when they were going through the concourse, and I'm like, oh my God, Becky Lynch, please, please, please empty that bottle of mustard in her hair, because it would just open the floodgates, and ketchup would be flying, and sugar packets, and hot dogs. You'd be stealing hot dogs from people in the arena and throwing them at each other. I think that really would have been a memorable moment. I think that really, sure, whatever, it's off script. I think, some of those brilliant stuff in acting happens when you're right there in the moment. And I think if she's willing to take a $10,000 fine for hitting a ref, then she should be willing to ruin a perfectly good blue wig with some mustard. I think it really would have been a memorable moment. And I certainly would not have mind it if I was Sasha Banks. I think that would have been a really memorable opportunity. All right, I don't want to talk about the commentary too much. It's completely evident that the commentators do not watch this program, so I will move on. Let's end on a high note here. And we all know what we're going to talk about next. We are going to talk about Bray Wyatt's Fiend.
Yes. That's what
His
everybody's talking
movement. I want to talk about what I liked most about it was the movement. You could like see the fear in Seth Rollins' eyes.
Yep.
Talk to me about what makes that gimmick so effective and how they're optimizing that character in the storyline right now.
I think what makes it effective is because it is so different from what we have seen for so many years now. Bray Wyatt's one of those wrestlers that has always had the crowd rooting for him, has always had the crowd behind him. Even when he was playing a heel, everyone wanted to see Bray Wyatt succeed. And now that he's been allowed to develop this character on his own to the degree that he has, and he's put so much thought into it, like you said, just going down to just the simple movements that the Fiend makes, really stands apart from how Bray Wyatt used to move or act or whatever. And it's just so engaging of a character. Not to mention, I mean, the music, the lights, when he came out with the severed head lantern, all of it is just an incredible gimmick and so much fun to watch.
Is he going to win at Hell in a Cell?
I think he has to. I mean, I wasn't crazy about him getting a title shot so soon, but now that he has the title shot, he has to win it. Otherwise, it's just going to seem like they're going back to the old Bray Wyatt who always talks, who always jumps people, but then when it comes to the big match, he can't win it. They cannot allow that to happen.
Where do they go from there? I mean, you've won the Universal title.
Yeah. They'll start having Firefly Funhouse matches like Broken Matt Hardy used to.
All right, we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's one of those situations where he has to win, but he can't win. I feel like it kills the gimmick almost. I don't know.
It could. This could be a major misstep. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, at some point they've got to do Fiend versus the Demon Finn Balor. I mean, it depending on how the brand split pans out, maybe we could eventually see Fiend versus Brock Lesnar. Who knows? I mean, they really can do anything with him at this point. But how soon they take that title away from him after he wins it, that'll be the question.
I think it'd be cool if he gets drafted and then completely ignores the draft.
And he just goes wherever he wants.
He just does whatever he wants. Like, he could show up at any time. He could show up on NXT.
That would be cool.
Just to F with somebody. You know what I mean? I think that'd be kind of neat. Sort of, you don't control me. I do whatever I want. I'm off the grid, yada, yada, yada. I thought that'd be interesting. All right, moving on. NXT.
Yeah, so as we said, tomorrow is the first night that NXT will premiere on the USA Network. They have been on WWE Network for the past 5 years, since 2014. It's the first time NXT has been on cable network since back when it was the reality-based competition show that was so terrible. So we found out that it's going to be a 2-hour show now. And the first couple of weeks, the first hour will be on USA, but the second hour will be back on the WWE Network. I guess there's still some programming issues with USA. Coincidentally, the first official 2-hour episode will be on the same night that AEW premieres on TNT. I'm sure it's complete coincidence, too. So, what do you think? I know we've had a couple of articles we wrote up in our blogs about this, but what do you think overall about this move that NXT has taken?
I think Already, you've seen the benefits of competition. I think that while it hasn't been consistent improvement, I think you've seen an overall trending upward of the quality of the stories, the use of the characters, the um, intensity of the matches, and the intensity of the feuds. In general, things are trending up. The WWE, even when they're not using someone, they're using them effectively. Think about what's gone on with Rey Mysterio and how they've used the Rey Mysterio character. He essentially hasn't wrestled. He's wrestled twice now, but he took a big break, and yet people are still excited. People are still interested. There's always an extra little pop when he comes out. Um, Putting Paul Heyman at the helm, not an accident. Putting Eric Bischoff in a leadership position, I'll say, not an accident. Moving NXT, the most loyal group, keeping Vince busy with the XFL and mostly out of it. These are not accidents. This is too many coincidences to be an accident. And I think that the quality of the programming has gone up. I think you'll see it continue to go up. And I think at this point, unless AEW dies, we really won't see it get any worse than this. It'll probably stay here as long as AEW is there. If AEW comes out kicking and they do, if every Wednesday night is like, one of their pay-per-views, that's going to continue to drive things up and up and up and up and up. And you're going to see, I think you could easily see something that resembles the new Attitude Era, which everyone can thank the WCW for that, right? Everyone can thank the WWF for NWO, and everyone can thank the Attitude Era. Can thank WCW. So I think the results are already in. We're already seeing improvement, and really AEW is going to what do we say? They're going to sort of set the tempo of the music, and they're going to determine how far this really goes and how interesting things really get.
How do you think they're going to do in the ratings?
So when I made my little one-off video a few weeks ago from the car, talking about the deal that USA made to get NXT,
$50 million, was it?
For $50 million, which is roughly a fifth of what they're giving for Raw. And I talked about how that was an insanely good deal for USA because there's no way in heck that NXT was going to do 20% of the crowd that Raw does. I don't care what else is on Wednesday night. NXT is going to kill it first 2 weeks. And then they're going to run into some competition. But I would say that you're probably going to see it's not going to be as strong as Raw. Raw is competing with nothing. They're competing with Monday Night Football, but that's a very small subset. I think they took a very small hit when Monday Night Football started back up again.
Yeah, absolutely,
and then
they did.
Come January or February, that'll be gone again. So I think you're going to see them for the first couple of weeks as high, maybe higher than Raw. And then when AEW kicks in, it'll drop back down, and it will probably be somewhere around. It might be a little below SmackDown. I don't even know if it'll beat SmackDown because, again, SmackDown is up against nothing. I mean, it's definitely the lesser of the two brands right now, but it's nothing. I think what you're going to see is just a lot more people watching it on demand. So do you count those as viewers? I don't know exactly how you count those. But I think NXT is going to get just as much love, just as much support, depending on how this draft works out. And I think it'll end up being a significant success. Will it end up taking eyeballs from AEW? Again, I don't know. People are going to watch on demand. I mean, this isn't the late 90s anymore.
Right.
People watch online. People watch all over the place. So, I think this is going to be really funny to say, but I think live ratings don't really matter anymore.
No, that's 100% true.
No, I think if you look at exposure of the product to the market, right, which is um, even things as silly as AEW partnering with I Prevail to do their music. I'm a
Hmm.
big I Prevail guy.
Yeah.
Their hometown is the town that I'm currently living in right now. It's for them. It's just a great way to connect with a segment of the audience that WWE doesn't connect with. I don't know how many people that listen to I Prevail watch an overglossed WWE type wrestling product. So I think that they're definitely targeting different markets, and it'll be very interesting to see which one ends up on top.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited to see this happen. I'm just hoping that it does stay true to what they've been doing all along. That's made them so much fun to watch. So, like you said, it will be interesting to see. What else was interesting was King of the Ring this week.
I don't want to talk about King of the Ring. Let's move on. Um. So yeah,
We got to
King of
talk
the
about
Ring.
it because I picked a winner.
So Matt picked a winner. Um.
It wasn't my
Well, so
favorite
let's
pick, but I picked him
so
anyway.
let's talk about King of the Ring really quickly, and then we'll lead up to the big finish. So, what was your biggest surprise now that the tournament is over? What was your biggest surprise?
I am actually very surprised that Chad Gable went all the way to the finals. I did not expect that. I expected him to be out in the first round.
What's the angle on that? Why are they giving the short guy a big push?
I honestly don't know. I because they were pushing so hard with the height thing, and he's a little guy. I thought for a while there he actually was going to pull it off and win the whole thing. But then Corbin got the win in the end. But yeah, I
Yeah,
honestly.
when they said his daughter was in attendance, I was like, done. He's winning.
Oh, Corbin's daughter.
No, 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 Gable.
Oh, I don't remember them saying that.
Yeah, Renee said it.
Yeah, I think I honestly don't know why he was pushed so hard. I think of all the competitors, he definitely benefited the most out of anyone else in this tournament for sure. But where they go with him from here, I honestly can't say.
You mean to tell me Ricochet didn't benefit?
I mean, did he?
I
He's
mean, look at
still
what he's moved on to now.
he's still at the same level he was at.
Yeah, yeah, I'm making a joke, Matt. Yeah, just I would rather be Chad Gable than Ricochet because I'm not wrestling Mike Kanellis over being accused of being a Marie Kanellis' baby daddy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We won't talk about that.
Yeah.
So, uh, King Corbin was crowned. It seems to me like you got to go back a little ways to find a face that was crowned king. Seems to be a heel type angle.
Well, you mean who won the King of the Ring or who actually wore the crown?
No, no, won the tournament.
I know, was Stone Cold a baby face when he won?
That's how far back I'm going. I assume he's a face at that time.
I'm not even sure if he actually was or not.
I'd have to go back and look at all the details, but he might not have been. But I mean, God knows, King Booker was not a face at
No.
that time. So perhaps I should have at least called a heel to win. So Gable benefited the best. What is this going to do for Corbin?
I think this fits in. I mean, I said it from the beginning when I picked Corbin to win. This is another accolade to add to his list of accomplishments. Former Raw Constable, former Andre the Memorial Battle Royal winner, on and on and on. And even if, spoilers, from SmackDown tonight. Even if Gable hadn't destroyed the crown and the throne and the robe, Corbin is the type of heel who could get away with wearing that stuff on a regular basis, like Booker T did, like Owen Hart did. So yeah, I think this benefits him well. He's the right type of heel to have this title.
You think they're going to give him a title shot?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was writing the Raw review last night. I don't see it going beyond that. I mean, definitely not if Gable had won, but even Corbin, maybe a U.S. title, maybe an IC title, but I don't think he'll ever go for another world title. Not anytime soon.
Well, not until it gets in the. He either turns or those titles go to the hands of faces. I mean, they're not going to have him wrestle Nakamura or AJ Styles.
Well, that and a month or so ago when everyone did not want to see Baron Corbin on TV anymore, he was in the main event picture at that point. He was on every segment all the time, including the main event. So I just don't think anyone wants to see him in that position anytime soon.
Yeah, I agree. This is probably the best thing they could do for a mid-card guy, but yeah, I really hope that it leads somewhere. Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's just going to, I don't know, it's gonna devalue the King of the Ring right now. It has a pretty solid pedigree. I would
Some
like to
people
see
might argue
that.
that.
What's that?
Some people might argue that.
I think in general, if you look at the entire history, it has a very solid pedigree. Yeah, I mean, are there low points? Absolutely, there are low points, but you can't argue with Owen Hart, Steve Austin. I mean, even Booker T. You might not like the character; he's a good wrestler.
No, yeah, definitely.
So I mean, Sheamus was a pretty good wrestler. He was King of the Ring. I mean, it's
That's where it
it's got
starts to
its
get a little
ups and
fuzzy.
downs.
Sheamus and Wade Barrett.
Maybe I'm just biased then.
Yeah.
When are they going to do a Queen of the Ring?
I expected it to happen this year. Just another. Oh, here's another first we can say we did. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it'll come, in before Royal Rumble or after Royal Rumble, somewhere around then.
Well, it'll be Charlotte versus whoever.
Well, sure. She already has the title. That's the finals. Whoever wins the tournament has to face her to become queen.
That's right. Yeah. So you think we're going to see an excess of women's competition on some Friday nights coming up due to some of the Saudi shows?
That's the rumor. Nothing's been confirmed. Nothing's been said. But those Saudi shows are going to interfere now that SmackDown is moving to Fridays. Unless they keep, half the roster back from going to Saudi Arabia, or they, after this week saying the brand split is in full effect, then they have guys come over from Raw to SmackDown to fill in the show. I think it's very possible we'll get an all-female episode of SmackDown whenever they go to Saudi.
I think the women's division is stronger now than it was 6 months ago. I think it hit a low point right after WrestleMania.
But again, you're also talking about the brand split too. So are they going to have women come over from Raw to fill out, or are there going to be enough on SmackDown to fill a whole 2-hour show?
No, I mean, you're going to see mixing, and I mean, there were 3 actual matches on tonight's SmackDown. So could you hypothetically fill? Yeah, of course you can hypothetically fill, without digging. But actually, there were crossovers even tonight. So,
well, yeah, the brand split takes effect when they move to Fox, because apparently Fox and USA don't want any crossing over between the shows.
Which you can understand from a branding perspective.
Absolutely.
If you're Fox, you want to have your stars, you paid for them. And if you're Comcast, you want your stars, you paid for them. So, yeah, it'll be also interesting to see how the writers respond when they're not given an easy way out. When they're like, these are your characters, you got to use them. You can't be stealing from other brands. Well, I guess they could still steal from NXT technically, but you know,
That's what's still up in the air if NXT will have any say in the draft, if anyone's going to get switched around from them. Have to wait and see in a couple weeks.
all right. I want to talk about steel chairs.
I don't know if I do want to talk about steel chairs. This has been a pet peeve of mine. Now, I need to preface this by saying I am certainly not a wrestler. I have never been hit with a steel chair. You might have more insight in that than I will.
It hurts.
But it just seems to me, as a fan watching these shows lately, that the steel chair is overused on every single episode, every single pay-per-view. Speaking of the women just a few minutes ago, they especially lately have been having parties with these chairs. Sasha Banks, Bayley, Becky Lynch. Becky and Sasha on Monday were actually fencing each other, having a duel with chairs. It really feels like this is becoming a crutch more than an actual element to push a story forward. I mean, you think back to, heels of old. You think back to Ric Flair, who was the dirtiest player in the game. When he was looking to get heat, how often do you remember him grabbing a steel chair? Hardly ever, right? I mean, he would distract the ref, he would gouge the eyes, he'd do the low blows. I mean, rarely ever would he ever need to grab a weapon of any sort, let alone a chair. And conversely, baby faces, when they're getting beat down, they rally behind the crowd, they fight over the odds. Now, if they want to get retribution of any sort, they grab a steel chair. It just, like I said, it just seems like it's becoming more of a crutch than a useful tool in a story. I don't know. I may be way off base. Does any of that make sense?
I think you're right. I agree with you in the sense that the steel chair is definitely getting overused. And I'm not sure why there's such a heavy emphasis of it from the women's division side. You talked about some tasteful and creative uses of the chair. I think that the whole shot to the gut, shot to the back is definitely overused.
Right. It was.
I don't get upset when I see what they did with Xavier Woods in his knee a few weeks ago. That doesn't bother me. DDTs on an open chair. That doesn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
Almost anything off the top ropes onto a chair doesn't bother me. But a chair to the back that gets sold really hard by a performer, and then they show up the next night and they're like entirely fine.
Right.
It inflates. There's inflation when you use the chairs every single night. Nobody cares if you use a chair anymore, and a chair is supposed to be something significant. And it's starting to happen with tables. How many tables have we gone through in the last, let's say, since SummerSlam? There's been a run on tables. Tables.com is making a lot of money off WWE because they're killing it. So I agree. But I mean, what alternatives do we have? I mean,
well, yeah, that's the thing. That's what I mean, where it becomes a crutch. Rather than they go for this chair and reuse the chair over and over, rather than trying to come up with something a bit more creative. I mean, when was the last time we saw something as innovative as Eddie Guerrero throwing a chair into his opponent's hand behind the ref's back and then pretending he got knocked out by it? I mean, that was the first time you saw that. It was like, what just happened? That was incredible. He did zero movement, there was no type of major bump or anything, and it was the best thing you'd ever seen. I mean, if there was some way to make the chair more interesting or use it in a different way, I'd be totally on board with it. But the fact that it's used so often, and like you were saying, having to hit them in the gut. They bend over for a few seconds, and then a shot to the back. It looks very awkward. It looks very staged, and it takes me out of the moment.
And by the way, it's dangerous. When Sasha Banks was going after Becky Lynch at her premiere, she took one misplaced shot and caught Becky in the back of the head.
Right.
I mean, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
It can be really dangerous.
And yeah, I certainly would never condone, having the wrestlers do something that would cause more undue harm. And I don't condone what happened a few months ago in AEW, but that unprotected chair shot to the head, we haven't seen something like that in so many years that, yeah, that was dangerous, that was ridiculous, it shouldn't have been done. But at the same time, it's like, did you see what happened? That was insane. It got people talking,
So what would you say is, how do I want to ask this? What would you say is like an appropriate level of occurrence? When is a chair shot justified?
When that's the problem, especially in WWE. They move so quickly because there's so much product out there and everything seemingly moves so quickly. They're always jumping to gimmick matches or personal vendettas or blood feuds. I think it really comes down to just the storytelling and the overall pacing of your shows to really determine when any sort of weapon gets involved or any sort of gimmick match gets involved. And especially with the chair. I mean, how many times have you seen someone go under the ring and there's a pile of chairs under there, they start yanking out, then an hour and a half later another wrestler goes to the timekeeper's area and grabs another chair. It's like, I mean, you can use weapons whenever you want, just they need to come up with a new way to do it.
You never see a chair get ripped out of a man's hands, but the referee is always reaching for the chair when a woman's swinging it. You notice that?
Yep.
I think it happened last night, right?
Yep, that's true.
Was it Bailey? I think. She came in with a chair on Monday Night Raw, and the ref reached and pulled it right out of her hands. But then I just realized when I saw that, I was like, I can't remember if I've ever seen that happen to one of the male performers.
Yeah, the only time it happens is when it leads to another low-down move.
This is the one comment I'll make, too, regarding appropriate use of the chair. The use of a chair should never lead to a disqualification. So what I mean by that doesn't mean that you can hit someone with a chair without getting disqualified. It just means that you shouldn't write that into the story. You shouldn't write chair shot, match over, blah, 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 retains the title or wins the match or whatever. It needs to be used in a clever enough way that they can either get around the rules, Eddie Guerrero, or flip the rules to their advantage, Eddie Guerrero, or in a way that doesn't get them caught. That, I think, would make things creative and rare enough that you wouldn't see, these chair sword fighting going on in the center of the ring, which, by the way, did not look impressive at all. It looked extremely choreographed.
Yeah. I will say one thing, though. At Clash of Champions, after Becky and Sasha's match, Becky had a chair set up in the ring and pulled Sasha's arm through the back and then put her submission move through the chair in that way. That was creative. More of that is what is needed.
But it killed it. It killed it because of the 1,000 chair shots that came before it.
Right.
It took the luster. The chair inflation, the chairflation, just totally killed the gimmick. Yeah, I agree. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think maybe we don't need to retire the steel chair, but maybe the steel chair needs to go into hibernation for a little while. Maybe get some rest, and we'll have a big TLC match at WrestleMania or something.
Change the hashtag to hibernate the steel chair.
It doesn't have the same ring.
Yeah.
I don't know. We should leave it. Retire the steel chair. I like it. Hashtag retire the steel chair.
I'll be posting a full article on this later on the website, so stay tuned.
I was just going to say that. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, if you like what you're hearing, go on over to wrestlingwiththebusiness.wixsite.com and check out our articles. They're up. We're up on Facebook at Wrestling with the Business, on Twitter at Wrestle with Biz, and we're putting content up constantly, trying to look out for you guys, talking about what's going on inside and outside the ring and how the two affect each other. And we will see you next week.
And until then, remember, always keep kayfabe, follow the money, and we'll keep wrestling with the business.